Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week on MMA Junkie we take a quick spin through the latest headlines in the sport of mixed martial arts. This week, again, it is gorgeous George Garcia and the goals from MMA Junkie Radio. We're going to put them on the clock, so let's get right to it. This past weekend's big event, UFC 245, Kamaru Usman retained his welterweight title with a fifth-round stoppage over Colby Covington. Now, guys, Colby Covington was public enemy number one coming into this fight, no question about it, but he had a great performance. Still, he ran out of the cage, didn't talk to anybody, didn't do any media. He ended up kind of trashing Mark Goddard on social media. And I'm just curious, did Colby miss a big chance to kind of sway public opinion had he stuck around, talked to people, maybe handled things a little bit different? George, would sticking around have changed public opinion? Would it have changed his situation? 3 minutes on the clock. Go.
It would have changed the perception amongst hardcore fans and the MMA media. He cares nothing about that. See, the difference is like when it happened with Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is a worldwide superstar. He wants to answer to everybody that follows him, detractors or his fans or whatever. But Colby's invested in being a heel. All right. Now, that said, he also had a broken jaw. And so he was probably also pissed at the stoppage. And I think all that together, he just had no interest in basically making new friends, making new fans. That's what he is he's a heel, and that's why he wasn't interested in facing the music and saying anything nice about Kamaru or saying anything nice towards Las Vegas or anything. I think he's just basically dialed into his character. Whereas Conor McGregor, I think he builds up fights, he'll trash you, but as a competitor, he'll also shake your hand, and he also knows that's part of the rebuilding process towards the next fight. So he'll face the music then, he'll face it in the back, wait about a week, and then it's on to the next guy.
Some interesting points there from George. I want to ask you, George mentions that, hey, listen, Colby Covington probably doesn't care if a couple media members say that he's a great character. You look at the morals that he's shown here. This is who he is, and maybe he's going to stay that way. I don't know. What's your take on this? Because, George mentioned, like a Conor McGregor, man, I felt like the night he lost against Nate Diaz, he made more fans than he did in some of his victories. So what do you think? Was this a miss by Colby Covington, or is this just Colby being Colby?
No, I think it's Colby being Colby. I understand why he did it. There are a lot of casual fans that don't listen to everything Colby Covington says in between fights. He put on a great performance in the cage, and I think he won a lot of people's respect for his fighting skills. And maybe if he stuck around, he could have won a couple people over, but that's just not what the guy wants. And it's not really a way to set up all these matchups that could be waiting for him in the wings. So I understand why he did it. Add in maybe the broken jaw might have had a little bit to do with it as well. I understand why he did it. I think it's necessary if he wants to build for bigger fights later.
All right, bigger fights later. So that's the big question, is what comes next. I think that's what we thought was, like, or at least for me, I thought was most intriguing about this. The build-up, he got to where he is, smart, but then what about the fall? Where do you go from there? So now there's a big question, right? The Masvidal fight, would have been big had he won. I just don't know. Are there big fights that you see right away? George, what should come next for Colby Covington once, of course, he's healed up and ready to go?
You're right. So that's going to take about 6 to 9 months probably for him to get 100% right and finish out of camp. That gives him plenty of time to see how things play out. So I think Masvidal should be, fighting big fights, which is a little clue to what we're going to discuss in a bit. But that fight's, it can simmer, all right? These two dislike each other. I think that one can simmer, much like Conor and Diaz. Part 3 has been simmering for 3 years. So that's what I would do, is let that one simmer for now. He just needs to get healthy.
It's a great point, man. That fight can happen at any point down the road. And to both you guys' points, I got to give Colby a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, right? The broken jaw probably didn't help his willingness to want to stay in there and talk to people very long. But he's in a tough spot. I'm really interested to see where he goes from here. All right, meanwhile, we talked about Kamaru Usman. He got a title defense in the books, and now we got to look at what's next. They want to enjoy the moment. We always got to see what's next. All right, on the one hand, you got the BMF champ himself, Jorge Masvidal. He's sitting out there. He's one of the biggest stars in the sport, but I think even he's saying he doesn't know if this is the right fight. Meanwhile, Usman was up there mentioning Leon Edwards, and I got to say, he was mentioning it with some real respect, and I kind of like that. Given a time of day to a challenger that maybe wasn't necessarily getting love like that before. So what should be next for the welterweight title? Kamaru Usman, George, or I'll go with goes this time. 2 minutes, go.
It's strange. The night of, I couldn't help but think Jorge Masvidal is that guy. He's right there. Then you hear Leon Edwards, and you think about their resumes. You think about what's going on. I could actually see that slipping in there, Leon Edwards, because I think it all depends on a guy like Colby Covington. Jorge Masvidal, that guy, he's kind of a money weight as well. If you keep him busy with something else and he waits out for Colby, I think that's what people are going to pay to see, is that fight. And what's the worst case scenario if one of those two guys comes out of there and Kamaru wins his fight? Now you make those fights; those are going to make money as well. So I think there's a way that you can blend this all together where everybody makes money, everybody's happy, and at the same time, the guys that deserve to fight there get their matchup. So actually, I think it may be Leon Edwards.
It's kind of interesting because we're always talking about the balance of money. I mean, that is the reality of it. As a fan, I'm sure most fans don't necessarily want to talk about what makes the biggest pay-per-view revenue. But look, it's a real factor, especially when guys get to this point. So, George, what's your take? I mean, is it the biggest fight on the table with Masvidal? I mean, at least that's the biggest star, the biggest name available. Or do you like the idea of willing contenders that maybe are deserving but not getting the love, like in Edwards, getting a look?
Yeah, so Edwards has the longer streak, and I guess he just has like the more impressive welterweight resume. But Masvidal had big wins on the big stage. So I feel like Masvidal is probably just the big money play for the UFC and for Masvidal. And Masvidal should be looking at it as, if I beat Usman, now I can defend and I'll get those pay-per-view points versus a Covington who's a guy that I'm bickering with in the gym, an Edwards who I gave a 3-piece and a soda to. You know what I mean? So he should maximize that money on that side by becoming champion and selling those pay-per-views. He's managed by Ikawa. The Kawa brothers have seen what John Jones and Demetrius Johnson and Tyron Woodley has done. They should show him the ledger. Hey, this is what happens when you're the champ. Pay-per-views, baby.
Yeah, no doubt. I got a feeling Masvidal is going to wait to see what Conor McGregor does and maybe go from there. But I like the idea of giving these contenders a shot.
That like was pretty respectful.
Henry Cejudo, for instance. Peter Yan, not Jose Aldo. No disrespect. All right, Alexander Volkanovski. He turned in an incredible performance at UFC 245, unseating Max Holloway as featherweight champion. Now, Max thought he won, but I don't think there was a lot of controversy in the results, if I'm being honest with you. I thought the result was right. But still, the initial talk seems completely centered around a rematch. There's a lot of talent at featherweight, no question about it. But is that the fight to make right now? Do you go right back to the rematch, George? 2 minutes.
Yeah, you know, when I heard that they were going to do a rematch, and I'm with you, John, I thought it was clear Volkanovski won. I hear Max Holloway, he has every right to vent. But I went back to that November 9th fight, somewhere around there, when Zabit and Kattar fought. I thought it was right for the pickings for Zabit, who's been outstanding so far, has a great record, comes from a big fighting country like Russia, and I just thought, man, if he can just grab it by the throat and say, this is my shot. Unfortunately, the fight ended with him getting his hand raised, but Kattar was the one that was finishing strong. It wasn't a statement win, and I thought, ooh, that might hurt him if Holloway and Volkanovski's a classic, or if Dana White is just open to the fact that he wants to do a rematch, because Holloway, with all due respect, he's been a pretty awesome champion. So here we are. It looks like that's the situation, and that's what they're going to do. Zabit might have to take another fight, and I think Zabit is kind of the leader of everyone else that's chasing those guys.
I agree. I think that's the right way to look at it playing out. I had no problem with the rematch. I think it makes a lot of sense business-wise. Again, we're talking about money. I think a rematch in Australia will be huge. But, Goes, I want to ask you, is there a situation in which maybe it makes sense for Max Holloway not to take a rematch? You know, I'm just thinking about this. You know, anytime we see a champ go 0-2, or a challenger, I should say, go 0-2 against a champ, it's hard for that guy to get a third one, right? And Max Holloway has teased a move to lightweight. I don't know. Is it possible that maybe it's the smartest move for Max Holloway not to take a rematch right now?
You know, it can't always be about money. And really, when you look at Max Holloway, you look at that fight with Volkanovski, it was close, but Volkanovski kind of had his number. He was just beating him to the punch. You can only win so many fights by being tough, and I think maybe a little bit of time away for Max Holloway to kind of sharpen up some new tools, add some new wrinkles to his game, maybe even go up to 155 and buy some time, because you're right, John, you know, 2 losses in that division, that would be a little tough for him. So if I were in his camp, I think I would advise him to take a little bit of time and let Volkanovski go through someone, get some mileage on him before he gets back there and does it again.
No question, he deserves it, but it might make sense. It's kind of weird to think about, but it does. All right, the women's GOAT, Amanda Nunes, she was victorious again, but she's in a really interesting position right now. 135, it was supposed to be Ketlin Vieira. She got knocked out. All right, 145, it barely exists right now. Clarissa Shields was being brought out there. But Nunes is saying, look, I don't want to box. I don't know where this thing even came from. If she wants to do MMA, cool. So I don't know. I don't know what's exactly next for Amanda Nunes. Goes 2 minutes on the clock. What do you think makes the most sense for Amanda Nunes?
You know, I think money talks. I know she says she doesn't want to box, but if you put enough money in front of her, I'm pretty sure she's going to get in there and do that. The featherweight division right now, it's not really a division. It's more like a club, really, when you think about it. So I think what makes the most sense, you hear Dana White talking about Zuffa boxing, right? And that's something they want to do. Look, if you're able to co-promote with Floyd Mayweather, you can co-promote with anyone on the planet, all right? So I imagine they can work that out to get Clarissa Shields over there to the UFC, have Amanda box. do it under the Zuffa Boxing brand. I think that makes the most sense right now.
That's crazy, right? I mean, it seems like all the time we're talking about, why are these MMA fighters talking about boxers? Leave it alone. Now here we're saying maybe boxing is the right scenario. But it's funny. I mean, you look at that 145 division. I mean, Amanda Nunes is still carrying around one of those old belts. It's been so long since they've been able to have a title fight there. So I don't know. And I don't know if there's a clear-cut contender at 135. So boxing does seem to make a little bit of sense. George, make some sense out of it, because it seems crazy that there's the GOAT, the women's GOAT, that we love her, but we don't know what makes sense for her next fight. So clear it up.
Well, for sure, 45 is out. There's more people in this room than there is in the UFC's women's featherweight division. So that's not a play. And there's not even a clear-cut 45er. Felicia lost to Cyborg, and Megan lost to Felicia. Now, Megan's gotten a win since then. Megan Anderson, excuse me. But still, there's just no one that pops out. So we're left with, I believe, like, if the UFC, like you said, if they're going to Australia, run that rematch with Holloway and Volkanovski. Guess what? If they're going to Mexico, feature Irene Aldana. If you're not going to Mexico, then I believe it's Aspen Ladd. I just think that she's been on more of a roll, more of a run. Her only loss is to the young lady that just lost to Amanda Nunes. I think that's the play. As far as Shields, hey, get them to come this way first and do some MMA, and then maybe Amanda Nunes can repay the favor. By then, she'll have the win in her pocket, and she'll know, well, I can go into boxing knowing at worst it's 1-1.
I like that. I think that makes sense. I'd like to see Aspen Ladd and Juliana Pena maybe have a number one contender fight to really clear it up. Irene Aldana, she's around the corner as well, man. She is putting it all
That
together.
was one hell of a punch.
Incredible. All right, Conor McGregor is coming back. We mentioned his name. He's back at UFC 246. That's next month, next year if you want to go that far. But already Dana White is laying out a scenario in which we could see Conor and Khabib 2 next year. Meanwhile, Khabib says, whoa, slow down a little bit. Conor needs to win about 10 fights in a row before we start talking about a rematch. So, guys, tell me, I mean, no question, Conor's the biggest star in the sport. People love to see him fight, but do we want to see a rematch? I mean, what should be happening at lightweight in 2020? 2 minutes on the clock. George, go.
Hey, I understand the power of Conor McGregor, but if he had taken on Justin Gaethje at 155, I'm all in on the rematch. Sorry, I know the rest of the lightweights are not wanting to hear that one. But I understand what Conor McGregor is, as a fan, as a media member, and I know what he means to the UFC. But it's happening at 170 versus a guy that Justin Gaethje beat. It just doesn't sit right. All these other guys are cutting. Paul Felder's going down for 36 hours just to do a photo shoot and a face-off versus Dan Hooker, and then he's got to fly back and do his duties. I mean, all these people do that, and at the same time maintain a strict diet to compete at 155 pounds. That is the weight class that he chose. He needs to compete there. So I totally disagree that he should get the next shot. Should he and Khabib win. Now, that said, Khabib's got a formidable opponent, and so does Conor. I guess we'll just have to wait to see how that plays out, but I don't like it on paper the way it's sounding.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is I love the idea of Conor McGregor and Cowboy Cerrone, and I actually have no problem with it being at 170 pounds. I just don't like it being a number one contender fight at 170 pounds. So, Goes, you tell me, what do you see happening? I mean, as you said, I guess we can't just assume Khabib is going to get by Tony Ferguson, because that's a heck of a fight that we've been waiting to see. Knock on wood that it happens. But what do you see? I mean, what scenario would you like to play out? I mean, do you want Conor even in these discussions, or do you see other names? How should this thing play out?
I think it's very strange that we even present this argument. You're right. Tony Ferguson's no joke. And guess what? Cowboy Cerrone's no joke as well. Conor McGregor's going to have his hands full there. But come on, guys. We're on ESPN at this point. Like, things have to make sense. There's just no way that you can make that argument and have it make sense to the casual fan that asks these type of questions. Why is this guy here? What do you tell a guy like Justin Gaethje, who's done everything a promotion has asked of him, fought the way we want him to fight? How do you pass him over? It makes zero sense to me, John.
Yeah, I agree. For me, first of all, let's just get through Khabib and Tony. I got to have that fight. Let's pray to the gods it stays together. But then give me Justin Gaethje, period, man. He's got to be next. I don't think he's got to fight anybody else. Just put him in number one contender. That should be it. All right, well, it was a big week behind us. We got another one ahead. Bellator's in Hawaii for 2 shows out there. The UFC is in South Korea for Frankie Edgar versus the Korean Zombie. So a lot of big fights in the weekend. We'll talk about all the fallout next week on Spinning Back Clique.